Hello everybody, Nick here. Today is October 11th, 2024. Today's video I want to talk about ways that the globalists or the system continues to want to control us. Ways that they keep bringing out and selling as a good thing. Usually these guys will sell these types of things, and when I say sell it, I mean try to pass it off as a good thing. Most of the time it's through the guise of security, safety, just like in the 2020, the events in 2020, 21, and those few crazy years that we went through. So I believe that 2020 was a test drive for part of this system that they want to implement, meaning the vax passports that they had for people who took the untested medicine. And this is a very slippery slope to go down, especially if you want to be somewhat free in this reality that we live in, because there really is no real freedom. I mean, I'll do another video about that, which would be a really good one. And so, they're trying to implement these digital passes and things like that. That 2020 was basically like a test run to see how it would go, to see if people would accept it. Now, if you want to look what is designed and which is the future for the West, all you have to do is look at China, for example. Now, in China, and I think China was like the test run as well, the massive experiment on human society. I mean, there's a few other countries that basically have went through the same type of things, but China is the big one. And China, which I guess a lot of them think that they're free or have a decent society, couldn't be further from the truth. Now, China, they basically have currently a social credit system, which means that you're connected to a mainframe, like a system. It's much like how you have a credit system or a credit check in whatever country you're in. If you're in the United States, they check your credit. Same in Canada, and I'm sure it's the same for most Western countries. And they check your credit to see if you're in that, between, I think it's like 700 and 900 or whatever range, in order for you to qualify for a credit card or a mortgage or things like that. More more handcuffs in this physical world that keeps you working. But so in China, they have that social credit system, which means every little thing you do, every little thing you say, anything can go towards this credit, which means if you fall below a certain number, they can bar you from travel, they can bar you from doing shopping, they can bar you from almost anything that involves participating in society, which is kind of frightening. I mean, for those youth that are being born now in China, this is the kind of devious thing. They will never really know what freedom is. It keeps getting smaller and smaller, shrinking more and more. So newer generations in China, considering that censorship is so high and they can't see a lot of things are kind of blacklisted, like Western movies or Western media, things like that. The internet is very highly censored and controlled in China. But so you're basically, every little thing in your life is controlled and is basically micromanaged through a social credit system. So as I was saying, the newer generations, they wouldn't know any better. To them, this is new. This is the norm. This is all they're really going to know. So generations before, maybe 20, 30, 40 years before, would have a read on the scale of freedom and rights in the world, or whichever country they're in. They could see the change over many years. The older you are, the more change you could see throughout your life. So it feels like it's closing in more and more. China is very much I don't know, I wouldn't say it's communist anymore. It's kind of like partially communist, but mainly like technocratic, technocracy, or kind of like an oligarchy, but they come off as like they're communist, which is totally bogus considering the president is president for life. And he has tons and tons of money, which goes against the whole communist, what do you call it? The communist handbook, or whatever you call it, the red book. So, as I said, if you want to see what is to come for the West, all you have to do is look at China and a few other dictatorial style countries. North Korea is a little bit different. They're pretty shut off from the world. I would say it's worse than China, if you can even say that, but they're not even allowed to predominantly leave. They're not even allowed to leave the country, really. I think people from North Korea, they're kind of really shut in there. They have to. It just seems worse. It just seems because they're kind of forced to show love for the leader and things. I'm sure the same thing goes for China, but North Korea is just on another level. I don't know. It has way less rights. It's much more poor. I mean, on a scale, because at least Chinese citizens can access a lot of things. They can travel, so long as they behave, so long as the state allows them to. So they're trying to bring these same systems to North America and Europe, the European Union. I don't know about England so much. I haven't heard much. I'm sure it's the same. All these leaders are lockstep with the same, global elites and whatnot. So digital ID will probably happen. I'm not sure about social credit system. I heard rumblings about them having a pilot project for that, but the social credit system, we'll see. Digital IDs are for sure already starting. I think the EU wants to get rid of like physical passports and like the ID cards, and they want to have it digital only. Same with the Vax passes or Vax cards or whatever you want to call them. They've started a pilot project, a test, as they say, in Portugal, I think just in this past August or September of 2024. And sadly, a lot of Portuguese people, they go along with what the government says. They don't question. It's very, very unfortunate. A lot of humanity is the same though, so I can't really say blame them, but a lot of people, and I've mentioned this in other videos, generally don't have time to research this and go down the rabbit hole to see what's to come. I've even mentioned about how we're not even enjoying our human experience. It's just getting worse and worse. I mean, when you have all of these restrictions and you have all these rules and regulations, and you gotta do this or you can't do that, it seems to me like it gets worse and worse. The world is going to turn into literally one giant penal colony if we're not careful. I mean, there's I've heard people mention that it already is, but it's going to get a hell of a lot worse if people don't start rising up and voicing their displeasure against this, because I think social credit system would be really bad. The other thing I didn't mention, and that goes without saying, that's an understatement. But the other thing about excuse me, with digital IDs and things like that, is that they'll be very easily manipulated and easily to control. It's all about control. You look at these things and you can see that it's all based on control, and they use the guise of safety and convenience to sell this as a good thing, you know, in order for the public to accept it. Because if you have a majority saying, oh, it is going to be, it's no big deal, they wouldn't do that to us. It's very easy to pass through, you know. But like I was saying, these systems will be very easy to manipulate, especially if you have your bank accounts or digital currency, which is part of the thing that they want to bring into as well. And I'm not talking about crypto, because that's sort of different. They want to have just digital currency instead of fiat currency. So no more cash. That's why, I mean, another reason during 2020 people stopped using cash, because they used the germ thing. Okay, you don't want to touch the cash. So it kind of gets people into the frame of mind of getting used to living without cash, right? All tap, and people using their cell phones, which is ridiculous. I never do that. Try to use cash as much as possible. So if you tie in digital currency into the digital ID, whammo, you're in complete control of someone's life. Because if someone goes against the state, or someone does something against the law, you know, quote unquote against the law, or something they simply don't like, they could cut you off. They could reprogram your money, your digital money, so that it expires as well. You will not be able to access it. You'll have to use it in a certain amount of time. They could change the value of the currency. It can be very fully programmable, which is extremely dangerous for freedom itself. Like, they'll dictate whether you can buy enough meat, you know, because they're pushing that whole global, climate change thing, and they'll use that as a reason. There's just so many implications as to why it's such a bad idea to go this way. But that's what's happening. It's slowly, you know, the tiptoe totalitarianism, and it's not good. If you're a skeptical person and you don't believe the things I'm saying, you could just go research it yourself. I mean, even some of these projects are on government websites. I know that on the Canadian government website, they had talked about, I think it was a digital currency or social credit system, or one of those. Digital ID, that was the one. Digital ID was on the Canadian website, and if I can find it again, I will post a link in the description so you can take a look for yourself. But it's everywhere. They just slowly talk about this, and if you find an article, they'll always talk about how it's for more protection, more border security, and all that nonsense, which, you know, we know at least I know the real reasons. Some of you guys will know the real reasons. Yeah, it's I probably left out something, but it's very concerning. The question is, what about those who don't use cell phones? That's the very interesting question. I'd like to know if I want to know the answer from them, because a lot of people simply don't have a smartphone, you know, and you can't use a digital ID unless it's on a smartphone, at least for now. They might come up with some sort of little card that's, I don't know. It's all real crazy. It's all real, you know, 1984-ish or Brave New World. Those are some good books, by the way. And let me know what your thoughts are about this. It's happening whether you guys like it or not. I don't know how we stop this, but just by not complying, I guess, is the only way. So hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if it's your first time on my channel. And I want to thank you all very much for watching. And we'll see you very soon in the next video. Thanks, man. Bye for now.